Are you someone who wants to make loads of gold in World of Warcraft using professions? Are you someone who wishes maybe not to make the best gear, but really, really powerful gear using crafting? Well, let's talk about why the Burning Crusade is arguably the best time for professions in World of Warcraft. Let's go. The WoW profession system. What a complete mess. Blizzard has spent more than a decade trying to figure out what to do with professions, and the most they've settled on is to let alchemists keep making potions, while the rest of them have turned into slot machines for possible best-in-slot items in a single, specific item slot. It's rather funny to see WoW players excited that future MMO projects such as Ashes of Creation or Pantheon Rise of the Fallen will allow players to genuinely spend days and weeks doing nothing but professions. Artisanships will become an endgame of their own in these games. Not only is this actually not a unique idea to MMOs, with plenty of titles allowing for this exact gameplay, it's even more frustrating though when you realize that the desire for professions to be their own endgame isn't even foreign to WoW's own life. Welcome to the Burning Crusade, when crafting became a monster, and the only way to quench the beast was to funnel it with loads and loads of primals. TBC decided that crafting was going to play a larger role than vanilla. During the launch years of the game, crafting will become incredibly strong with items like the Bloodvine set, Devilsaur items, flasks, and the Lionheart helm. The power behind these items was legendary, but some were actually far too easy to get. Not from a cost perspective, but from a gameplay perspective. Blizzard also realized that the best way to make powerful items valuable, but not too powerful, would be to make them sets. This prevents items like Lionheart's helm from being the best in slot across the whole game on its own. Bloodvine is a really good example of this, as each item in the set is rather powerful, but the real power comes from the set itself. This makes it necessary to go all in on Bloodvine, and it also makes letting the set go a bit harder, but also more essential to making room for newer and stronger individual items. This fundamental design would shift into the Burning Crusade as sets would become more commonplace, and player interaction would take a much larger role. Powerful crafted items would no longer be outliers, no longer the exception to the rule, but the rule itself. Crafting was powerful, arguably too powerful. Let's jump into jewel crafting, for example. I've done a whole video on how masterful the gem system is, so if you'd like to watch that, then click the card and come back, or feel free to watch it later. I won't go too into depth in this video, but taking a peek at that other jewel crafting design video may give a better indicator, but I want to talk about the philosophy that Blizzard was applying with this profession. Jewel crafting's primary purpose was the gem system. Gems would be added into sockets on gear in order to further customize stats on a given piece. These stats could include any stat that existed on the character sheet. This opened up a whole new realm for theory crafting and gear customization. In fact, jewel crafting would operate on 3 key design principles that seem to be administered to all other professions as well. First, further enhance performance. Second, the necessity of other players. And third, player control. If we look at jewel crafting and all other TBC professions for that matter, we can see these principles at work. The ability to further enhance your performance comes with gems themselves. If you need some hit rating to round out your stats or to top up your hit cap, you can do that. If you've just upgraded a piece of gear, but did, say, lose a little bit of crit rating, dropping you below a crit threshold, you can use gems to solve this. In essence, jewel crafting was reforging before reforging, but also existed in an open and free market. Speaking of the market, the necessity of other players was the key with jewel crafting. On its own, only for yourself, the profession's fine. However, when you apply this to a market, there is a never-ending desire to get gems, since the players in the game will be constantly finding new upgrades. On top of this, in order to even get the gems, you'd have to interact with other players who took up mining. You as a jewel crafter could do it yourself, but that might not be as efficient as you'd like it to be. Instead, people mining in the world could sell you the ore that you can prospect for gems in order to sell those gems to customers. This flow created a marketplace simulating real-world economics. And finally, player control. Gems were deterministic and controllable. Do you have an orange gem and want it to be plus spell power and haste? you can just make that. Do you notice that there's a hole in the market and want to turn your uncut red gems into agility ones to make some extra gold? Just do it. This whole thing may sound silly, but honestly, given the past few expansions of WoW having such random rolls on crafted items to be the prevailing method of delivery of goods, it's so incredibly frustrating. Being able to know what you're about to craft and that it will be exactly what you see in the menu is a massive breath of fresh air, as well as solid design choice back in 2007. The key is that the fundamentals I just described were applied to each and every crafting profession in the Burning Crusade. There would also be some clever uses of interprofessional demand amongst the players. Blacksmiths may need items from an engineer, for example, and vice versa. Arguably, TBC didn't take this far enough, though. Games like Guild Wars 2, WildStar, and Final Fantasy XIV probably handled this a little bit better. In fact, for a little while, WoW would continue this need of other players in your profession's progress, and then that need just died. Easily the most unique element to the TBC professions is just how crazy strong they are. Like, seriously, wow. It's arguably way too damn strong. Seriously, so much of what you can craft in TBC is good for multiple tiers worth of content. Well, that is as long as it's the full set. Some sets are notorious and are looked on with reverence to this very day. Item sets like Tailoring Spellstrike 2-piece have more power than most tier sets in the game. What makes it even more busted is that the 2 necessary items also fall in line with another choice that you could make along the way, being, say, the 3-piece set of Frozen Shadowweave, or the Spellfire set. These 5 total pieces are best in slot until tier 6 for some classes, and bring power potential to a whole new degree. This ability to achieve so much power from crafting is such a unique experience to the Burning Crusade expansion. Crafting in Vanilla and Wrath were incredibly relevant as well, but not quite to this degree. It's not just tailoring either. One of the most famous items from TBC would be the engineering goggles, which are incredibly powerful. On top of the goggles, engineers can also make one of the most valuable HP stacking trinkets with the Goblin rocket launchers. Oh, and yeah, you can equip 2 of them, by the way. Just a heads up, you're gonna want that. Being able to craft such insane items doesn't stop here either. Blacksmithing can make some incredibly nutty weapons like Dragon Strike. This is so much haste rating. Oh, remember in Vanilla WoW how the Lionheart helm is just a bit insanely overtuned? I introduced to you the Lionheart Executioner. These stats are stupid. You have some insane max damage on this weapon with a nice, chunky, slow speed. Oh, and don't forget about that 148 attack power it gives. Oh, is that not good enough? Then, you're right. Let's just throw in another 200 attack power proc for any strength users while we're at it. All right, cool. This item is already completely ridiculous and best in slot for people like Rep Paladins until tier 6, but at least we're done with the stat layouts. Oh, yeah, don't forget you can also resist fear, because, I don't know, I'm bored and this item is only completely broken already, but give it some more, because I have nothing better to do and I want to go to lunch. And then there's Storm Herald. This is disgusting. Look at this thing. Why so much attack power and stamina? A 4-second stun proc? Do you not want other people to be able to play the video game? What is this madness? Now, something to keep in mind is that those examples I just gave are incredibly expensive and time-consuming to make. You're going to require an intense amount of materials and a ton of other people's personal cooldowns to make these items happen. So, odds are these items aren't going to be too common and the power won't really be a problem. Well, we also said the same thing about Vanilla, and Devilsaur, and Bloodvine, and Lionheart, and here we are. If there's something that Classic WoW has taught us, it's that if it was rare and uncommon in the original iteration of the game, that thing will now be commonplace. Unfortunately, the tier 4 gear will be completely overshadowed by the fact that everyone will know that these items exist, and we know exactly what it takes to make them. It's not just that we as individuals know what we're doing, but as a global collective moving as a massive unit, we all know what it takes to be powerful and successful in the Burning Crusade. To think that Warlocks with full Spellstrike and Frozen Shadowweave is going to be rare, that's a bit laughable, honestly. It wasn't even that rare in the live game as is. I had this set myself, and so did the other 2 Warlocks in my raid. The funny thing is, the sheer power from crafting, though, doesn't just stop at armor and weapons. Even the consumables and other items are just so damn strong. And honestly, that's kinda great. If Classic TBC were to come out, we're not sure whether the game would operate under the original consumable stacking of 2.0 or patch 2.1 yet. For those who don't know, though, buffs at TBC launch were ridiculous. There was a no cap and no limit to what you could stack on yourself. Old school vanilla world buffs worked, every possible potion, elixir, flask, they'd all worked at once. Honestly, it was a nightmare, and basically no one liked it. So in patch 2.1, flasks and elixirs couldn't double up, and the old world buffs didn't work to the same degree. However, this didn't change how great these consumables were in strength. Alchemy was like magic. New potions that weren't just there to restore health or mana, but maybe examples like to increase spell power and crit strike, or other effects even further, would be introduced. Flasks were also super strong. All of alchemy was great. On top of that, just like basically all other professions now, in TBC, your profession could specialize. Like, for example, with alchemy, you could do flask, potion, or transmutation mastery. Some of these are better for money, others are better for yourself, but allowing you to specialize meant that other players of the same profession would still have a different strength than you. Thus, you may still work with those people among the same profession to reach a larger end goal. Weapon enhancements such as sharpening stones and wizard oil started to nail a balance of being powerful, but not too strong. Enchanting's effects were now also more interesting than just raw stat boosts as well. It's no surprise that arguably the most legendary enchantments are from the TBC era. Mongoose, Executioner, Soulfrost, Sunfire, these all changed up the way enchantments would behave for the rest of WoW. And of course, the biggest consumable in all of TBC, the consumable so legendary that entire guilds re-rolled professions across all raiders. A consumable that completely breaks the game, but is such a cool idea that people still look at them fondly despite the clear issues. Of course, it's the drums. Seriously, the leatherworking drums were arguably the coolest professional consumable Blizzard ever made. There were 3 different drums in particular that provided a very useful benefit for raiding: Drums of Battle, Restoration, and War. These shared a 2-minute CD and provided group-based buff for 30 seconds. If all 5 members of your group had 350 leatherworking and these drums, you could create rotations between players and keep 100% uptime on certain buffs. Drums of War would increase attack power and spell power for 30 seconds. Drums of Restoration would restore health and mana, which would actually benefit caster groups, especially during progress where resources might become scarce by the end of the fights. And of course, the big bad Drums of Battle, which provided an equivalent of 5% haste to the entire party for 30 seconds. These babies were insane and became mandatory during the live version of Sunwell Plateau. Yes, by the way, those Drums of Battle could stack with Bloodlust and Heroism, unlike today. Coordinating drums to use during raids was so much fun, and it added this level of teamwork that pushed team synergy to higher heights. The idea of group-based buffs built by professions is an awesome one, and I really wish Blizzard took this further with other professions, and provided a competitor to drums instead of just gutting them in Wrath of the Lich King. Professions in TBC were arguably the strongest they've ever been in WoW. Perhaps even too strong. However, the idea that the entirety of professions can be this endgame in and of themselves is something that a lot of people miss, myself included. In fact, I really hope that Blizzard can take this idea and run with it in Shadowlands and in the future. But if they don't, I guess I'm just looking forward to Classic TBC then. Thank you so much as always for watching my videos. Please hit the like button if you liked it, hit the dislike button if you thought that my opinion was stupid, and don't forget to leave a comment telling me about how my opinion was stupid. See y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.